I, like many people, take the maps of video games for granted. But what actually makes an open world map good, and why is the Shadow of the Colossus map a cut above the rest? In this video, I'll discuss what goes into an open world map, first going over the modern open world games, then comparing to the unique form of the open world map in Shadow of the Colossus. In my mind, the current landscape of open world maps is that of GTA. In GTA, the map is loosely based on the real-world city of Los Angeles. The map is littered with points of interest and different things to do, each with less and less things to do the further you are from civilization. This has the effect of keeping the player around a few central locations, occasionally placing them far from civilization for a certain quest or event. Despite it being an action-adventure game, this model is similar to the MMO map, with the emphasis on unique and separate areas that don't intersect with each other, and major story quests being the bridging gap. On the other hand, we have games like Elden Ring, where the player starts at one area and has multiple different ways to expand into unknown territory. Unlike GTA or MMOs, Elden Ring's map progress isn't really pushed by a series of quests. Rather, the way how the map works is that there's a series of linear paths that the player can choose between at any moment, all with their own localized progress. Although the player can choose where to go outwards, they are blocked by certain checkpoints such as defeating a boss to gain access further beyond that route. What is common to each of these games, and games currently as a whole, is that there's obvious routes that the player has to go to. GTA has a large interactive map that the player can set the GPS to, allowing them to follow automated guidance paths. Although Elden Ring is a little less forgiving, the map shows the next side of grace on the map, and its linear level design steers the player in a singular direction. Stripped from all these conventions of hand-holding and navigation, lands the map of Shadow of the Colossus. Let me give you some key details about the game that might help you with understanding its map. First, Shadow of the Colossus has an open world, which the player is free to explore throughout. But in the game, there's only one boss that's currently active at a time, that the player has to discover already in the world. Thus, although the player can just wander around the world to their own heart's content, there is no incentive structure besides a few collectibles. Second, every time a Colossus is defeated, the player is transported back to the center of the map, having their journey start outwards again from the central hub. These unique set of circumstances generate the search algorithm map design. Unlike the areas of domain like GTA, or the pitchfork of paths like Elden Ring, Shadow of the Colossus map resembles that of a search algorithm of a computer. The game starts the player with simple paths that require little navigation and are close to their origin. Although these paths are simplistic, they play a key role in the genius design that the game designers made. After these first few bosses, the next bosses get farther and farther away. With only a rudimentary compass, the tools of the game give little help to the player to traverse this unmarked world. Except, is this really a new world to the player? Because as the player starts to make their way from the center to wherever the compass is pointing, they start to realize, wait, I've been here before. See, the order of the bosses' locations aren't exactly random. The farther away bosses relies on the paths that were solidified earlier, like stepping stones for the player to reach further outwards. By designing the map that references your previous knowledge to help expand the unknown, the game breaks the convention of real-world maps that games like GTA relies on. Instead, the player is forced to rely on their own cognitive abilities, asking the player to call upon their embodied mental map of this virtual world that they unconsciously made, instead of referencing an external source. Shadow of the Colossus is all about this personal journey. A wanderer lost in a foreign land, forced to conquer this Herculean task all by himself. Thus, by involving the player to turn inwards instead of look externally, the game puts us in the same shoes as the wanderer, asking us to rely on ourselves only. This choice emphasizes the core themes of adventure and exploration, mimicking the sense of wonder that comes from a journey all on our own. In the real world, it's rare that we have a clear path to what we want and an obvious thing to do next. Even if we do have plans, these plans are ambiguous and often are subject to change. Instead, we turn to ourselves to reference where we want to go and expand our knowledge of the world by utilizing experiences we already had, creating a web of lived-in knowledge. Shadow of the Colossus mimics this beautifully, mirroring the same feeling of newness that you get when you decide to move to a different city or visit an area you often skip on a daily commute. Despite how empty and desolate the world of Shadow of Colossus is, this choice gives the map the desire to be explored, even without the constant sense of direction that defines modern gaming. Even though you might not receive anything by exploring it, it is satisfying because it feels like you're mapping out this world, which you know nothing about. It gives me the same feeling as exploring empty TF2 maps as a kid, the sense that there's so much to discover despite the fact that there's nothing to interact with. So why is this important? What can we learn about ourselves and how games are made in the future? In my game, Hovercraft's Ex Nihilism, wishlist on Steam by the way, I want to emulate this sense of wonder and enjoyment, to contrast it with the sense of unfulfillment that often comes from playing modern games. I think that Shadow of the Colossus and its design choices serve as a counter to the modern ideas of production and productivity. I want to tell a story of how completing these artificial and predefined goals that are common in both video games and in capitalism, such as completing a battle pass to get your money's worth, or acquiring a certain amount of wealth that far exceeds your ideal lifestyle, demands that we rely on things outside of ourselves to define our worth, further alienating us from our actions in this world. My hope is that by studying what makes certain games great, I can apply them to my own game so players can find their own meaning in the game and craft their own stories. So if this sounds appealing to you, the page for the game Hovercraft's Nihilism is on Steam, and I'll be making more videos about this topic. Thank you for listening.